All right, guys. Today we're going to talk a bit about closing a commercial real estate transaction smoothly. If you haven't done a commercial transaction before, it might be a little bit scary. It's a lot of the same stuff in a different order sometimes. And I just thought we would go over that a bit today. My name is Dusty. I'm a commercial real estate broker specializing in multifamily net lease properties here in Northern California. So when you're doing a commercial transaction, let me pop over here. When you're doing a commercial transaction, there's a couple things to consider. There's two types of buyers. Okay, it's not just one type. So you've got an owner user and an investor. Okay, these two different types of buyers are going to want two different types of things. The escrow is going to be a bit different. Just so you know, an owner user, they want to know if the space fits their needs. They don't. The return they're looking for is, can my business do well here? And what do I have to do to get it to work the way I need for my needs? And so their main concern is the bottom line price per foot, essentially, and the money it's going to cost to get them in the space. Okay, so the return is of no concern to them. Now, an investor is looking at the quality and stability of the income stream. How long is the lease? Who is it guaranteed by? What kind of lease is it? Are there any environmental issues? Stuff like that. Is the area growing? Is it in decline? These are things they'll consider. And what that's going to do is affect how they're going to buy the property. Are they going to buy it with a lower return or a higher return? How is that going to affect their concerns when it applies to what the return is going to be? So these two types of buyers are going to be a bit different. I've had investors who never see the building they buy. Okay, we've bought stuff. I'm in California. We buy stuff in Michigan. We just closed one in Oklahoma, Tennessee, Florida, all over the place. I think I closed in 26 states at this point. And a lot of times the investor client is looking solely at the quality and stability of the income stream. A lot of times they elect not even to go look at the property. Whereas an owner user obviously will probably want to tour the property to see if it fits their needs. So that in mind, there's stages of a commercial deal that are a bit different than you might find in residential. We don't, in residential, you're touring houses, running around all over the place, all over the city and county with your client, running through the houses. You don't do that in commercial. Usually, you start with an interest in a property. You get the marketing brochure. You have a discussion with the agent, get the deal story, and you present these to the client. You haven't toured the property. You're presenting what the agent is saying is the return on the property based on their brochure, based on what they're saying. And based on that, you decide where to go. You, at that point, will submit, if you want to proceed, based on what they're saying. So you're assuming what they're saying is true, a letter of intent. Okay, so letter of intent is a non-binding letter with the big bullet point. Here's my price, here's my deposit, here's all the big items, not all the minutia that's in the contract, but here's all the big items and how I'd like to handle those. Is there seller carry? Do I need a loan contingency? What's my due diligence period? All that will be in a letter of intent. It can be 1 or 2 pages, very simple, very easy to understand, and you can come to an agreement very quickly. From there, you get it accepted, you negotiate the contract. That's when you're dealing with all that minutia. A lot of times a attorney will come into play here. So in commercial, a lot of times I step aside when the contract comes into play, because a lot of times it's not this boilerplate that you often see in residential. It's oftentimes an attorney drafted Word document that may go back and forth between the two attorneys. What I will often do is provide my comments. I make sure to disclose over and above that I am not an attorney. I'm not providing legal advice. I'm just providing my comments on what I see. So that at the very least, if my client decides to engage an attorney, their time is going to be a little bit sped up because they know kind of the places they should probably focus, if there are any. Okay, so try to step aside. Don't get in the middle of contract negotiations. Don't try and be an attorney. Don't try and do legal work. You'll get in trouble. But you can kind of connect with the client and discuss with them kind of what your thoughts are. From there, you get the contract agreed to, you go to escrow, there's due diligence phase, then there's the loan contingency, if there is one, we move to close. Okay, so that's typically the life cycle of a commercial deal. Now, I don't want to focus on all this. I just really want to focus on the end here, because what you're doing, you're taking the plane here from right here, from top to bottom. You're at the 50,000 foot view looking at a landing space, and you're kind of guiding the plane in for landing. Okay. And the most important part of a landing is the landing. So that's why we want to focus on the escrow period, the due diligence, the loan contingency, and especially the closing period, because there's a lot of things that you should be doing to prep for close, especially in a commercial deal. Let's talk about escrow. Okay. First thing you're going to do when you get in the contract, I always make a timeline. Okay. Here's an example of one. I think I have it pulled up. Here's an example of one. Okay. This is a timeline. So we'll fill this out based on the contract, and this may change a little bit, but you've got the property, you've got your escrow information, all the negotiating parties are here, the brokers, the seller, the buyer. In the miscellaneous contacts, I might have the attorneys for both sides. We can expand that. And then very importantly, we have the timeline for all the important dates. Okay, so here's our price, when we opened escrow, when the effective date was. Okay, so that might not be the same date. Okay, we might have signed it on here the 21st. Maybe escrow opened a day later. That doesn't change our timelines. Now, our timelines are based on our effective day. So why I do this is not only to make it easier for everyone involved, but this also helps really solidify what the timelines are. Okay, so all the important dates. So if your due diligence ends here, when was it, on June 22nd? This is when we just closed. Then it's June 22nd here. And if no one disagrees, then we're all pretty much in agreement. If you think it's June 22nd and the other side thinks it's June 20th, and you're running up against that timeline, and you tell your client, hey, let's just kind of wait. We're waiting on this or that, and let's, we can submit an extension on the 22nd when our stuff's up. You might have some issue there, because maybe the seller says, no, you're already up. Okay. It was a passive release. You owe me your deposit if you decide to cancel. So I do this so that I can control, not necessarily control, but majorly solidify what all these important dates are, so there's no issue in the future. Okay. It also is really helpful, obviously, to have all these contacts, escrow number, all that stuff in the same spot. So make sure the first thing you do when you get in the contract, do a timeline. Okay. Second thing, due diligence materials. These are the free things. So what we do in an escrow is we say, look, let's do all the free stuff first. Then we're going to do the stuff that costs money. First thing we're going to get is a package of due diligence materials. This will be like a survey, income and expense stuff. You need to audit those closely. You got our leases, maybe a phase one. They'll get utility contracts as well, and then taxes. All this stuff can be involved in the due diligence materials. Now, once you get those and you review them, you're going to have a pretty good idea if you want to proceed, especially the income and expenses for an investor. But you might want to do some additional stuff. Maybe you want to do a phase two. Right. So these are environmental reports. Maybe something came up on the phase one environmental where you're like, hey, let's take a closer look. I want to spend the money now for phase two. That's when you do it. Do the free stuff, then do what costs money. This could also include an appraisal and other surveys and stuff. Maybe you want to do a property condition assessment. It's a PCA. That's a commercial version of I'm not sure what you call it in residential, but basically they look at the health of the entire building, all the major systems. They tell you how long it's going to last. Maybe there's some major repairs that need to be done now, some repairs that should be done soon, etc. So now you do the due diligence. Then you suggest we do the stuff that costs money. And you need to coordinate how long those things are going to take. So if your due diligence is a certain length, you need to be concerned about how long it's going to take to get those reports back. Okay. So you need to kind of lead ahead of those needing to be completed with the idea in mind that they could take some time. Case in point, if you've got a loan, here's some things that they might require. An appraisal right now is like 6 or 7 weeks out, depending on the area or your country you're in. So if you get in a contract and your due diligence period's like 30 days, or your loan contingency is 30, 45 days. I don't know if it'd be that short, but just keep in mind an appraisal is something that costs money. That's $5,000+ So, before we know with the free stuff that we want to do it, do we need to order an appraisal because our timelines are so short? So keep that in mind. That could be a bottleneck as you're closing things. And then, of course, all these other things are fairly readily available, but the appraisal would obviously be a bottleneck for a loan. Closing. Here's kind of what you do. This is now you're guiding it in for landing. Here's some questions we asked. Did we approve of the due diligence, all that free stuff? Did we approve of it? Do we have any questions? Have the insurance certificates been updated with the owner or the new owner as additional insured? A lot of times we receive this at the last minute. Okay, that can be a condition of close, right? So before we sign off on closing, we want to receive those and know that they're updated with us as additional insured. A lot of times this comes into play with net lease properties, not necessarily with like multifamily, but those are very important. If you're buying a $2 million fast food joint, you want the tenant to have you as additional insured in case that thing burns down, right? Settlement statement. A lot of times this is wrong the first time. Okay, so they say who pays what, when, and what the prorations are. A lot of times this is incorrect. The taxes are, sometimes they don't even need to be in there with my stuff, my net lease stuff. Maybe the deposits are not even in there, or they're allocated incorrectly. Maybe the rents are wrong. All kinds of stuff. So a lot of times I have to go back and forth over a couple days to get the settlement statement correct. Contracts or contacts for onboarding. So all of the people that you need to talk to, maybe there's a on-site maintenance manager, someone who runs the company's utilities, all kinds of contacts. Do you have all of those in one spot to give to your client? And then the closing package, is it approved? We'll go over what a closing package looks like. And have you coordinated with the exchange company? Sometimes maybe escrow is not aware there's an exchange going on. Make sure all of the exchange company contacts are in contact with escrow. Okay, so as you're moving close to close, I think I say it here. I don't see it right there. But basically, as you're moving close to close, you want to kind of lead ahead. So you don't want to get 2 days before closing and say, okay, are we ready to go? No, you need to prepare all of this stuff. Closing package, you need to coordinate with the exchange company. Make sure they're in contact with escrow. Directly, not indirectly, not through you as the telephone, the middleman or woman, directly in contact with escrow. And in the closing docs, make sure you're in contact with escrow and get into the closing docs, that closing package approved by both sides, a final set together for you to submit to your client for signature. Now, again, we're discussing with escrow all the time, especially toward the end. I like to say about a week to 10 days ahead of closing, we're in there with escrow. We're talking to them constantly. We're asking them what they need. We're trying to help them with any documents that they need and get them to them. Okay. If there's a trust deed or a mortgage statement, there's different processes for each type of state. These are some things that you'll receive in the closing package: assignment of leases, maybe a bill of sale. You need to ask escrow what needs to be notarized here. So confirm with them, send them the package you have, because you'll receive this all haphazard. Send them the package of all of the things you have. Say, hey, is this everything? And what needs to be notarized? Or what am I missing? And they will tell you. Okay. Again, get the full package a couple days before closing so you can approve it, you can tweak it, you can fix it. Like I said, like the HUD settlement statement's wrong almost every time. Maybe there's some wrong things with the assignment of lease or the bill of sale. So, make sure you get those ahead of time so that you can close escrow smoothly and you can coordinate, say, hey, our target close date is this. Get me a settlement statement a couple days prior, please. Post-closing, here's what you need to do. You don't just disappear into the ether. You need to deliver a full property package with due diligence, all the escrow files, any emails that were important, contact sheet, everything that your client needs to have a complete package. Deliver that to them electronically. Sometimes they want it physically. I always do a closing gift and a thank you card. I recommend omahasteaks.com. You can send them steaks and a bottle of wine and a thank you card. They do it all for you. You just order it, pick and choose. They get all kinds of stuff to select from, not just steaks. And importantly, right after closing, you're going to be asking for referrals, of course. right away. Don't let that cool down. Right when they're super happy that you closed the deal for them, ask them for referrals. Now I'm going to show you just an example of what an organized file folder might look like. This is the one we just closed. You've got very simple due diligence, escrow, purchase agreement. You got a timeline in escrow and contact sheet there, and an archive for all the stuff that's not important. Here's the due diligence folder. I like to number things like that. So you see 000. Anything that is not pertinent to things, but it is important to know, like email correspondence, I'll put in here 000. For due diligence, I don't often number those, but within the escrow, I usually do. So I'll number them. So all of the mortgage and those documents are in 02. The assignment, assumption of lease, all of those different closing documents, those are 03. And then I believe that was the title work was 04 there, but you can see kind of how that works. Okay. Up top there, you see 000 amortization schedule. That's not necessarily part of anything, but I want to relay that to them so that they're clear what the schedule is going to be, because that wasn't actually within the note there. So hopefully this helps. Again, this is kind of how you make a smooth closing. Lead it by a couple days. Okay, so we go back here. Make sure you lead by a couple days, 5 days minimum, 7 days, 10 days, probably preferable. Start prepping escrow. Let them know what you're planning, when you're planning to close, because they don't know. Okay, things change. They've got a lot to do. So they might not know when you're going to close a deal unless you tell them. So you need to coordinate with them actively and constantly to have a smooth closing. Hopefully this helps. If you are not a part of Straight Talk Commercial Real Estate Academy, feel free to click the link below. We have over 50 hours of training. We do office hours with training like this every single Friday, and we welcome you to join us. See you later.